thrown away, like trash. Zura's body lay still on the cold metal floor. Her skin, once glowing with soft colors, was now pale and dry. Her race had called her useless. She could not produce children, and in her world, that meant she had no purpose. Breeding failure, the label on her file had said. They did not kill her. Death would have been mercy. Instead, they left her on a broken supply station far from any trade routes. She had no food, no power, no light, just rusted walls and silence. But she was alive. Her weak fingers moved slowly as she pulled herself into a corner. She found an old blanket there full of holes and dust. Still, she wrapped it around herself. She tried to stay warm. Her body was thin, too thin. Every bone showed through her skin. She had not eaten in days. Once she had been proud. Part of a noble race that spread across stars. Now she was garbage. No one would come for her. No one cared. Until today. The door to the station opened with a loud hiss. Boots stepped inside. Human boots. "Whoa," said a deep male voice. "This place is falling apart." 3 humans walked in, flashlights cutting through the darkness. They were scavengers searching for old tech. "Spread out," said one. "Grab anything we can sell." Jake moved toward the far wall. His eyes scanned the shadows. He had done this job for years. He thought he'd seen it all until he saw her. In the corner, a pair of glowing eyes looked back at him. He raised his light and froze. It was an alien woman. Thin, shaking, barely alive. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and her lips moved without sound. "Guys," Jake called. "Get over here." The others ran over and stared. "Is she alive?" one asked. "Barely," Jake said, kneeling beside her. "She's freezing and starving." "Forget her," the other man said. "She's not worth anything." "She's breathing," Jake replied. "We can't just leave her." "She's one of the Ailari," said the third man. "They throw away females who can't breed. No one wants them. They're trash." Zura heard the word. Trash. It hurt. Even now, she wanted to speak, to ask them not to hurt her, but her throat was too dry. She could only look at Jake. Their eyes met. His were warm, kind, full of something she hadn't seen in a long time. Mercy. "We take her," Jake said. "She comes with us." "No way," the other man argued. "She's dead weight." "Then go without me," Jake replied, lifting her carefully. Her body felt like paper in his arms. She was so light it scared him. As they walked back to the ship, Zura drifted in and out of sleep. In one moment, she dreamed of her home planet of gardens and stars. In the next, she felt real arms holding her, real breath on her cheek. A human was carrying her. Why? Jake laid her gently on a small bed in the med bay. The ship hummed around them as it took off from the station. He gave her water. She drank slowly like she hadn't tasted anything in weeks. "You're safe now," Jake whispered. "No one will hurt you here." Zura stared at him. She did not understand. In her world, weakness was hated. Failure was punished. Humans were said to be violent, greedy, cold. But this one had saved her. "I'm Jake," he said, pointing to himself. She opened her mouth. A dry sound came out. She tried again. "Zura." Jake smiled. "Nice to meet you, Zura." He brought her more water, then food. Soft food, easy to chew. She ate slowly, unsure if it was real. No one had fed her before. As Jake left the room, he turned to one of the crew. "She stays," he said. "I'll take care of her." "You're making a mistake," the man replied. Jake didn't answer. Inside the med bay, Zura curled up under the warm blanket. She felt heat in her fingers. Again, she listened to the hum of the ship and to her own heart beating. Someone had looked at her and didn't see trash. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel useless. She felt seen. She doesn't know how to live. Jake checked the med bay. Screen again. Zura's body was stable now, Her temperature was rising, her heart beating stronger. He had given her food, water, warmth, but something was still wrong. She didn't move much, didn't speak, didn't even look around the ship. She just sat on the bed, arms around her knees, staring at nothing, like she was waiting to die. "Zura," he said softly, stepping closer. "You're safe, I promise." She blinked, very slowly. "Safe," she whispered. The word felt strange in her mouth, like it didn't belong. "Yes," Jake nodded. "You're not on that station anymore. You're with us now." But Zura didn't respond. She didn't understand. 2 days passed. Zura said almost nothing. She followed commands like a machine. Eat. Drink. Rest. Clean. But she never asked questions, never showed curiosity, never smiled. She didn't know how. Jake watched her sit alone by the window. The stars passed slowly outside. Any other alien would have been in awe. But Zura only stared, like the stars meant nothing, like she meant nothing. "Do you like it?" Jake asked, joining her. "The view?" "It's empty," she said. Jake frowned. "You think space is empty?" "Not space," she said. "Me?" Jake didn't speak for a moment. "How do you answer that?" That night, Jake woke to the sound of movement, light footsteps down the hall. He got up and followed. In the dark corridor, he saw her, Zura, moving like a shadow. Silent, slow, almost ghostly. "Zura?" he called gently. She froze. "What are you doing?" I had a dream," she said, her voice hollow. "About a door. I was outside it, but I couldn't go in." He stepped closer. "It was just a dream." "No," she whispered. "It wasn't. I think I've seen that door before. But I don't know where." Her hands trembled. "I'm remembering things." "What kind of things?" Jake asked. She looked at him. "Things they tried to erase." Zura had always believed she was thrown away because she was useless, a broken female. But now, old images were flashing in her mind. A white room. Needles. Cold voices. Keep her under. She's not supposed to remember. There had been more to her exile. Something hidden. Jake listened carefully as she spoke. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were changing. No longer empty, now full of confusion and fear. "They did something to me," she said, "before they left me on that station." "What?" Jake asked. "What did they do?" She shook her head. "I don't know. I think I had another name once, another life." Suddenly she grabbed his arm. Her fingers were ice. "If they find me, they'll kill me." "Who?" Jake asked. But she didn't answer. The next day, Jake ran a scan through the ship's system. He wanted to check if any signals had been sent or tracked since they left the abandoned station. He found something, a hidden ping. A silent pulse had left their ship shortly after they rescued Zura. It was directed into deep space. Not a distress signal. Not a call for help. Just a location beacon. Someone out there knew exactly where Zura was, and they were coming. Jake walked quickly back to her room. "Zura, we need to talk." She turned slowly. "Someone put a tracker in that station. Maybe even on you." Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. "They said, if I ever left." "What?" Zura's eyes filled with fear. "If I ever left that place alive, it meant the experiment had failed." Jake's stomach turned. "What experiment?" She shook her head fast. "I wasn't just labeled useless. I wasn't just exiled. They were testing something in me. Something they thought didn't work." "What was it?" he asked again. This time, her voice was barely a whisper. "Life." He blinked. "What?" "They were trying to create something new," she said. "A way to carry both human and alien genes. A hybrid line. They thought I failed. But maybe they were wrong." She looked up at him. "Maybe that's why I'm still alive." Later that night, Zura stood at the mirror. She touched her face. She didn't know if it belonged to her anymore. Something inside her had changed. She felt stronger, faster, thoughts came clearer, emotions more intense. The old Zura was weak. This Zura was something else. Jake heard the alarm go off. A ship had entered their range. No warning, no calls, just silence. The crew looked at the screen. The vessel was black, shaped like a claw, and had no identification markers. Zura stared at it. Her knees nearly gave out. "It's them," she said. "They came to erase me, completely." Jake stood up. "Then they're too late. They came to erase her." The black ship outside did not send a message. It only watched. Its engines were silent. Its weapons were hidden. But everyone on board Jake's ship could feel it, like cold breath on the back of the neck. Jake stood in the command room staring at the screen. "Who are they?" One of his crew asked. Zura already knew. "They're not here to talk," she said. Her voice was quiet but full of fear. "They're here to finish the job." Jake looked at her. "What job?" Zura's hands were shaking. "To erase me. I wasn't just left behind, I was marked for deletion. If I ever showed signs of waking up, they were supposed to kill me." Jake's jaw clenched. "Why you?" "I'm not normal," she whispered. "I was made, built. But they thought I was broken. So they dumped me, now they know I'm still alive." Suddenly, the enemy ship moved. No warnings, no lights. Just a silent boarding pod, launched fast and direct, heading straight for their airlock. Jake grabbed his blaster. "They're coming aboard." Zura froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "You have to hide," Jake told her. "No," she said. "If they find me hiding, they'll kill all of you." Jake stepped closer. "Then what do we do?" Zura closed her eyes, and for the first time, she remembered something new. Not pain, not fear, power. "I need to go with them," she said. Jake grabbed her arm. "What?" "Let me in their minds. Let me see them," she said softly. "Zura, they'll kill you." Her eyes opened, no longer full of fear, but something else. Determination. "No," she said. "They'll try." The pod landed with a heavy clang. Jake and his crew waited at the airlock, weapons raised. The door hissed, steam escaped, and 3 figures stepped out. Tall, armored, helmets like black mirrors. But Zura knew them, even without faces. "I remember." "You," she said, stepping forward. One of them raised a hand, not to shoot, to scan. "Subject Z-17. Status, reactivated." Another spoke. "You were not meant to survive past stage 3. You were thrown into failure bin 6, said the third. "You do not belong." Jake aimed his gun. "She belongs here now." They didn't look at him. "You are not part of this system, human. Step aside," but Jake didn't move. Then, without warning, one of the soldiers charged. Jake fired, but the blast bounced off its armor. The second soldier lifted a small device. Zura cried out, grabbing her head. A sound, only, she could hear, pierced her skull, a shutdown signal. They were trying to shut her down like a machine. But this time, something broke, and something else woke up. Zura screamed, but not in pain. It was rage. A pulse exploded from her body, knocking all 3 soldiers back at once. The walls shook. Lights flickered. Jake stumbled. "Zura?" She stood there. Eyes, glowing faint gold, no longer weak, no longer quiet. She walked forward, step by step, toward the fallen soldiers. The lead soldier struggled to his feet. "You were not designed to resist. You are unstable." Zura grabbed his arm and it cracked under her grip. "I was never unstable," she said. "You just didn't understand me. You're a failed experiment." Zura leaned close. "Then why are you afraid of me?" The second soldier raised the device again, but Zura lifted her hand. The device sparked and melted. Her mind reached out, not just in anger, but in control. Jake watched in shock. She wasn't just remembering, she was changing. The third soldier turned to run, but Jake fired, hitting the exposed joint in his armor. The figure dropped, The others followed quickly. Silence returned. Zura stood still, breathing heavy. Then her legs gave out, and she collapsed. Jake caught her before she hit the floor. "You're not a failure," he whispered. "You're more alive than any of us." But Zura was unconscious, and something in her blood was glowing. Later, Jake ran a scan. Her DNA was changing, evolving. She was stabilizing, faster, stronger. She had fought off a control signal meant to shut her down. No one had ever done that before. She wasn't a project anymore. She was becoming something new. In a dark chamber far across space, a figure in a silver robe stood before a large screen. The feed from the black ship had been received. He saw it all. Zura, awake, resisting, fighting, surviving. "Activate code red," he ordered. "Z-17 is not terminated, she is active." A voice replied, "Then what now?" The robed figure turned. "If that subject escapes control, it could change everything." He stared into the stars. "She cannot be allowed to survive." Boku. On the ship, Zura woke slowly. Jake was there. "I saw something," she whispered. "A place. A tower of glass, needles, machines." "Was it real?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "That's where they made me. That's where the others are." Jake's eyes narrowed. "Others?" "They didn't just make one," Zura said. "They made hundreds." Jake sat back, thinking. What happened to them? Zura stared out the window. They didn't survive. She turned to him. "But maybe I was meant to." The secret lab that shouldn't exist. Zura couldn't sleep. Even when her body rested, her mind kept showing her pieces of a place. Cold metal walls, lights that never turned off, voices that called her by numbers, not a name. Jake stood outside her room, watching the stars drift past through the window. She stepped out silently. Her bare feet made no sound. "You saw it again?" he asked without turning. She nodded. "That place where they built you? It's not just a lab," she whispered. "It's a graveyard." Jake looked at her. "Can you take us there?" She shook her head. "They erased the map from me. They didn't want me to remember." "But you did." Zura looked up at him. "Yes, I think it wants to be found." An hour later, the crew gathered. Jake stood in front of them. "We're going off course." One of the pilots frowned. "To where?" "We're looking for a place that's not supposed to exist, a lab where they built her." Zura stepped forward. "And where they killed the others." Everyone looked at her. She didn't seem like the weak girl they once rescued. She looked strong, focused, dangerous. One crew member whispered, "Why would we go there?" Jake answered. "Because someone out there still thinks she's a mistake, and I don't like secrets kept in the dark." Zura added, "And if I don't go, I'll never be free." The journey took 2 days. The closer they got, the worse. Zura felt headaches, visions, echoes of screams from memories that weren't hers. "Did they speak to each other?" Jake asked her once. "No," she said. "We couldn't. They kept us in tanks, sleeping, testing." "What kind of tests?" Zura's eyes became distant. "They wanted to see if we could feel love, fear, pain." Jake frowned. "Why?" "So they could remove it." Finally, the ship arrived at empty space. No planets, no stations, nothing. "It should be here," Zura said quietly. The scanners showed only silence. Jake tapped the console. "Are you sure?" Zura walked forward and placed her hand on the screen. Her eyes closed, and a ripple passed through the black. Suddenly, a shape appeared. Massive. Hidden behind. A cloaking field. Floating like a tomb. "The lab. I remember now," she said. "That's where I died." They docked on the far side. No lights were on. No signs of life. Jake took a small team and Zura. Inside, everything was covered in dust. Dead screens. Empty. Halls. But then they saw it. Rows of tanks. Some cracked open. Others still sealed. Inside them, frozen figures floated in green liquid. Jake counted at least 50. "Are they still alive?" he asked. Zura walked closer to one. A small girl, maybe 10 years old. Skin pale, like marble. Wires in her head. She placed her hand on the glass. "No," she whispered. "She died the day I did." Jake looked around. "Then why would they keep the bodies?" Zura didn't answer, but something deep inside her began to burn. Anger, pain, and a question she couldn't push away. Why was she the only one left alive? They reached a locked chamber. The computer was dead, but Zura touched the panel. It hissed open. Inside was something different. Not a lab. A throne room. And at the center, a large chair surrounded by screens. Jake walked closer. There was a skeleton in the chair, dressed in robes. Zura flinched. "I know him." "Who was he?" Jake asked. "The architect," she said. "He gave us life, and then decided we didn't deserve it." Jake pointed to the screens. "What's this?" Zura walked forward and placed her hand on a glowing panel. Somehow it still worked. Images filled the air. Videos, files, experiments. Hundreds of versions of her. Some with wings, some with glowing eyes. All of them failed. One video played by itself. The architect stood over a young Zura. "She's reacting to human interaction," he said. "Her empathy levels are increasing. She's forming attachments. If this continues, she could become too independent." Another voice answered, "Shut her down." The screen went dark. Zura turned away. "I wasn't a mistake," she said. "They were scared I'd think for myself." Jake stepped beside her. "You're more human than any of them ever were." Suddenly the screens glitched. A new voice played, deep, metallic, from nowhere. "You have entered restricted zone Echo Black." Jake raised his weapon. Zura froze. "That's not from the lab, that's from somewhere else." The voice continued. "Unauthorized subject Z-17 detected. Termination protocol initiated." Jake pulled her back. "What did you trigger?" Zura whispered. "They knew one of us might return. They left traps." The ship shook. An alarm blared, and the tanks behind them began to drain. Zura turned to look. "They're waking up the others." Jake frowned. "But you said they were dead." "They were," Zura said. "But I think they've been turned into something else." The chamber door slammed shut behind them, and from the darkness eyes opened, red, glowing, and full of hate. Jake stepped back. "What are they?" Zura's voice trembled. "Not alive. Not dead. Just rewritten. The lab wasn't just a place to create life. It was a factory to twist it. And now the lab was waking up again to destroy the only one who escaped. Her sisters weren't dead. They were reprogrammed to kill her." Zura's breath caught in her throat. The tanks cracked open one by one, green liquid spilling onto the floor like poison. Bodies dropped out, silent, still. Then one moved, and another. Jake raised his weapon. "Back, everyone back." The girls didn't speak. They didn't blink. Their eyes glowed red. Their skin was too perfect, too pale. They looked like Zura, but colder. Empty. Zura whispered, "They're my sisters." One of them stepped forward. Her head tilted like a curious predator. She spoke in a robotic tone. "Subject Z-17 detected. Rogue gene active. Termination required." Jake stepped in front of Zura. "You're not killing anyone today." The girl's head snapped toward him. "Human. Irrelevant. Discard." She raised her hand. Jake's chest armor sparked, then exploded. He flew backward, crashing, into the wall. Zura screamed. The others began to move. Fast. Too fast. Zura grabbed Jake and pulled him behind a console. He groaned, coughing blood. "They're not alive," she said, voice shaking. "They've been programmed to hunt me." "You said they were like you," he gasped. "They were. But something changed them. Someone rewrote their minds." Jake tried to stand but fell. Zura looked around. The room had no exits left, just dead ends and shadows. The girls, her sisters, closed in, silent as ghosts. Zura had to make a choice. Fight them, or speak to them. She stepped out from the console, arms raised. "I don't want to hurt you," she said softly. "We came from the same place. You don't have to obey their orders." The lead girl paused. For a moment, something flickered in her red eyes. Then her voice turned cold again. "Feelings are errors. Love is weakness. Orders above all." Another raised her arm. A small orb of energy formed. Zura braced herself, and just as it fired, a shield dropped from the ceiling and old lab security protocol still active. The blast hit the shield and bounced back, knocking one of the sisters to the ground. Zura ran to her. The sister twitched, sparks flying from her temples. Zura leaned in and whispered, "Please, remember who we were. You used to smile." The girl looked at her. Something flickered again. "I smiled?" "Yes," Zura said. "Your name was Sari. You used to trace stars on the glass." The girl blinked. Her eyes flickered red to blue, then back to red. She screamed and shoved Zura away. "She's trying to corrupt the network," one of the others shouted. "Terminate." "Now." Jake, half-conscious, reached for his communicator. "Base, this is Jake. We've got rogue AI clones. Requesting evac." The signal cut out. A static noise filled the room. Then the room lights changed from white to deep red. Zura stood. If the lab had defenses, she had to find them now. "Follow me," she shouted to Jake. "I'll lead them away." Jake tried to grab her. "Zura, don't—" But she was already gone, sprinting through the corridor, her sisters following like shadows with red eyes and silent feet. She ran down a stairwell and into a deeper part of the lab. This place was different. Colder, walls lined with mirrors. Inside each mirror, her reflection. But each one was different. One had sharp teeth, one had wings, one had tears running down her face. Zura stopped. She realized what this room was. It was a memory chamber, where they tested emotions, where they broke the girls. And then she saw it. Hidden door behind one of the mirrors. She placed her hand on it. It opened. Inside was a dusty chamber. One screen still worked. A final video log. The architect appeared again, this time without his cold expression. He looked tired. He spoke. "If you're watching this, Subject Z-17, it means you survived. You were the only one we couldn't fully control." Zura held her breath. "You were a failure to them. But to me, you were hope. A chance that we weren't just building tools but lives." He looked down. "But when they found out what I did, giving you memories, dreams, they erased me. Took over the project, turned the others into weapons. I'm sorry, Zura, I tried." The screen went dark. Zura stared at it, tears falling. He had cared, even if only a little. He had given her more than the others, and now she was the last free one. Unless... She reached into the panel below the screen. There, hidden in a small compartment, was a chip, labeled Project Restore, Emotion Core, Override. She knew what it meant. Chance to bring her sisters back, but only if she reached the mainframe and only if they didn't kill her first. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber. "You found it, but you won't leave with it." Zura turned. 3 of her sisters stood at the door. Sari was among them, her eyes still red, but softer now. "Zura," she said, "I remember the stars." Zura smiled. "You do?" The one next to her growled. "Sari is compromised. Erase." She raised her hand, but Sari moved fast, blocked the attack. The blast hit the wall, shaking the room. Zura didn't wait. She ran past them, chip in hand, heading toward the mainframe chamber. Behind her, war had begun. Some sisters followed orders. Others started to remember. Sari fought her own. Screams echoed. Zura reached the mainframe room and slammed the chip into the port. "Please," she whispered. "Come back to me." A blue pulse spread through the lab. All at once, the red lights dimmed. The girls froze one by one. Their red eyes faded to normal. Some collapsed. Others held their heads. Confused. Lost. But alive. Jake arrived. Wounded, but standing. He looked at them. "Are they free?" Zura nodded slowly. "Yes, for now." He looked around. "What now?" Zura stared at her sisters. "Now, we teach them what it means to live." The hidden empire that ordered their deaths. The silence in the lab didn't last long. Zura stood among her sisters. Some were crying. Some stared at their hands like they'd never seen them before. Others just sat in shock. The override chip had worked, but it didn't fix everything. They had no memories, no names, no idea why they were created, or why they were told to kill one of their own. Jake limped into the room, still wounded. His armor cracked, his voice rough. "We can't stay here," he said. "Someone sent them after you. Someone big." Zura nodded. "The question is, who?" Then, the lab's power flickered. A backup server came online and a single word appeared on the screen. "Orexia." Jake frowned. "What's that?" Zura stared at the name. Her blood went cold. "I've heard that word before. In my dreams, like a voice in the dark." Jake looked at her. "We need answers." And that meant one thing. They had to leave the lab and go straight into the unknown. 2 days later, they arrived at an abandoned orbital station. Sari had remembered a code. It was buried deep in her memories. She said it came from a transmission she once received from Orexia. The station hovered in dead space. No lights, no life. But when they docked, the doors opened, on their own. Zura stepped inside with Jake, and Sari behind her. The rest of the sisters stayed on the ship, watching from a distance. The inside was dark and cold. Dust floated in the air like snow. But there was power, barely. Enough to run the servers. And there, hidden in the main terminal, they found a data vault encrypted, locked. Jake connected his tech. "Give me 5 minutes." As he worked, Zura walked through the station. The walls were covered in strange symbols. Alien, elegant. Not from Earth. Not even from the lab. She touched one panel, and it reacted to her. Lights lit up. The wall opened, behind. It was a chamber. Inside, dozens of other girls floated in sleep pods, but these were different. They looked like her, but older. More evolved. Their bodies shimmered slightly like living energy. Then a voice spoke. Deep. Echoing. Not human. Project Z series. Has exceeded expectations. Phase 2. Ready. Proceed with purge of all active units. Zura stepped back. What? Purge? The voice didn't stop. It was a recording. Orexia demands perfection. Emotion is failure. Free will is contamination. All rogue units must be destroyed. Begin cleansing protocols. Suddenly alarms rang through the station. Jake shouted, "We've been found. They're coming." Zura grabbed the console and pulled out a drive. "Take this. It's got the coordinates." Jake looked at her. "Coordinates to what?" She looked toward the sleeping pods. To Orexia. Back on the ship, Zura sat in silence. The coordinates were real. Orexia was not a name, it was a place, a hidden empire, a planet-sized machine world, a place that created her people and ruled them in secret. And now that she had broken the Bari code, they were sending hunters, elite ones, the kind that didn't just kill, they erased. Jake read through the data. "This empire has been hiding for thousands of years," he said. "They send out projects like yours, genetically build species, test them, then wipe the ones that don't follow." Zura whispered, "We were an experiment." Jake nodded. "And you failed." She stood. Her eyes burned. "No. We broke. Free. That's not failure. That's evolution. But the data had something else. Something darker. There was a list. Names. Zura's name. Sari's name. Jake's name. All marked, to be eliminated. And then, another line. Termination scheduled. 48 hours. The ship went dark. Then red emergency lights came on. Sari shouted from the cockpit. Incoming. 3 ships, fast, armed, not friendly. Jake looked out the window. They weren't ships. They were hunters. Black, sharp machines shaped like blades. Moving like shadows. One of them sent a message. Surrender the rogue. All others will be deleted as collateral. Zura stepped forward. She spoke into the comms. No. Come and try. The battle started instantly. Their ship shook. Zura turned to her sisters. Stay hidden. Stay safe. But Sari stood up. No. I remember now. What they did to us. What they made us forget. She grabbed a weapon. I'm fighting with you. So did 3 others. Sisters who once tried to kill her, now willing to protect her. Zura gave a sad smile. Then let's show Aurexia what real failure looks like. They launched from the ship in escape pods and flanked the hunters. Jake flew 1 pod, Zura another. Sari took the 3rd. The hunters were faster, smarter, deadly, but Zura had something they didn't expect. She knew their weakness now. Emotion. She baited one toward a gravity well. Jake lured another into an asteroid storm. Sari took a direct hit, but rammed her attacker and ejected at the last second. The first hunter fell, then the second, but the 3rd, strongest, of them, slammed into Zura's pod. Her systems failed. She drifted. The hunter grabbed her pod and tore the door open. Zura stared into its cold eyes. You were never meant to live, it said. She didn't blink. And yet, I do. She pulled the last weapon from her belt, a code spike, and slammed it into the hunter's core. The spike lit up. The hunter froze, and then exploded. Zura floated in space, watching the light fade. Her sisters pulled her back inside. They were bruised, shaken, but alive. Back on the ship, Jake patched her up. You okay? He asked. Zura nodded weakly. They won't stop, she said. Not until every one of us is dead. Jake looked at the coordinates again, then at her. Then we stopped them first. Zura stared at the stars ahead. Aurexia made us in silence, in secret, like tools. She looked back at her sisters. No longer killers, but people. Free people. Now, we show them what happens when their tools fight back. She stood tall, her voice calm. We go to Aurexia, and we burn it down. She was made to obey. Now she's leading the uprising. Zura had never seen a place like this. Aurexia wasn't just a world. It was a machine god. The planet didn't breathe. It hummed. Skies were filled with floating spires. Mountains were covered in signal towers, not trees. The ground didn't grow grass. It grew wires. From orbit, it looked like a metal brain, alive and watching. Jake stared at the scanner. It's shielded with quantum fog. No signals in or out, except theirs. Sari leaned over. It's where we were made, where we were programmed. Zura didn't blink. Then it's where we end this. They landed the stealth ship on the dark side of the machine world. Their goal wasn't to fight a war, it was to break its heart. Zura, Jake, and 5 of her sisters moved through underground tunnels. Each step deeper into the planet felt colder. They passed broken units, older versions of Zura's kind. Some still twitched, others whispered in broken voices. Not perfect. Not enough. Must obey. Sari looked away. Jake stayed close to Zura. We can still turn back. Zura shook her head. They made me to obey. They erased my name. They threw me away, but I remember now. She stepped forward. I'm not theirs anymore. At the core of the planet, the control spire rose like a black tower. Inside it, the Overmind watched them. It had no face, but it spoke. 1,000 voices echoed at once. You are errors, corrupted, unfit. Zura stood tall. We're free. Freedom, the Overmind replied, is a virus. It activated the Purge protocol. Across the galaxy, every Z-series unit still connected to the hive began to shut down. Zura's sisters screamed in pain. Some fell. Sari clutched her head. "They're turning us off." Zura reached into the spike she took from the station. Jake looked at her. "That's suicide," she smiled. "It's a key." Zura walked into the control spire alone. The Overmind surrounded her. Metal arms, spinning drones, a giant column of light showing her entire life. From the first day she opened her eyes, to the moment she chose to disobey. "You were designed to serve," it hissed. Zura stepped into the light. "I was designed, but I became more." The Overmind struck her with a mind pulse. Memories flooded her head, every command she was ever given, every moment of pain, every time she obeyed, against her will. She dropped to her knees. The spike in her hand fell. The Overmind laughed. "Obedience is order. You are weak." But then, she saw something, a memory it missed. The day Jake looked her in the eye and didn't see a tool. He saw a person, and gave her a name. Zura. She stood again, her voice steady. "No. You're weak. You built a world that fears freedom." She picked up the spike and drove it into the core. The machine world screamed. The Purge protocol stopped. The connection to the hive broke all across the galaxy. Z-series girls opened their eyes, and for the first time no voice whispered in their heads. No orders, just silence and peace. But the Overmind wasn't finished. It began collapsing the spire. If it could not control them, it would destroy everything. Zura ran. Jake pulled her into a transport as the tower exploded behind them. Fire chased them into the sky. But they made it. Barely. 1 week later, the galaxy felt different. Not safer, but freer. Zura stood at the edge of a rebel camp. Sari walked up, beside her. "They're waiting." Zura nodded. She walked into the hall. Hundreds of former obedient units stood, each once called useless, broken, failed. Now, they looked at her, not as a leader forced on them, but one they chose. Zura stood before them. No armor, no commands. Just truth. "They made us to follow," she said, "but we found our own path. They called us mistakes, we became sisters. They sent hunters, we became warriors, they tried to erase us." She smiled. "But we're still here." The room shook with cheers. Zura raised a hand. "One final mission," she said. Jake stood beside her now. She looked around. No more hiding, no more fear. "We will help every one of our kind, no matter how far, no matter the cost. We are not weapons. We are alive." The crowd stood, and Zura, once thrown away like trash, now led an uprising that would change the stars forever.